You've been given a divine assignment. You've been put here on this earth because God created you to do really specific things. And I personally am passionate about seeing as many people as possible embrace the Ephesians 2:10 reality of their lives, which says this: "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." You guys, if you have been put on this earth and God has specific good works he wants you to do, then you've got to figure out a way to bring it out. Would you agree? Like, that's the title of our series. But if you've been put on this earth, and a lot of us get into this mystery mode, or like, what is it? I'll do it. But you have been given an assignment from God. You've not just been given an assignment for your life from God. It also really matters what you do your life for, who you do your life for. All of us, are we not prone to do it for ourselves? Just the pastor have a little selfishness in him? We're all prone to do it for ourselves, but you know what the scriptures say? Do nothing out of selfish ambition. Instead, 1 Corinthians 10:31 says to do it for this reason: so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. So here's the thing about your life and what you're called to bring out, about my life and what I'm called to bring out. I am called to bring out an assignment from God. I am called to do it for God, but there's a third piece, and if I can just bare my soul a little bit, I have missed this third piece way too much in my life, which means I'm assuming that you've missed this third piece way too much in your life as well. So from God and for God, but the third piece is this: with God. And I'm being honest, this isn't just pastor speak because I want you to be able to relate to me. I've missed the with God part of my life way too often. Let me show you visually how this has looked in my life. You can nod your head if you can relate to it, or just give me your shame on you face, Ben, if you can't relate to it, okay? Here's what it looks like in my life. I really have gotten good at these first two, and I don't mean with arrogance and pride. I just mean I've gotten a lot better than I used to be. These days in my life, I really am like, God, what's your assignment for me in this season? God, what is it you want to do? There's a prayer time, there's discernment. I talk to my wife, of course. I bring advisors in. God, what is it you have for me? And then I do this. Stay right here. Let me go get it done. Let me strive. Let me make things happen. Let me impress you. Let me make you proud. I do it, and then I come back with the same posture and go, here you go. And I want to be honest with you. I've grown so much in those two areas. But I've missed something along the way, and I don't want to miss what I've been missing along the way, and I don't want you to miss what I'm guessing a lot of you have been missing along the way as well. Because here's what we do. Even when we want to produce God's vision for our lives, we tend to go after it in the same way the world approaches achieving results. Would you agree? And that puts us somewhere, right? We're not at zero anymore when we're with that posture, but even when we go, okay, assignment from God, I'm actually locked into that. Ben, don't ask me if I did that in college. You probably know the answer. Same, I get you. But I'm locked into the from God life, and I genuinely, my motives, they're not 100% perfect or pure, but I genuinely want to do it for God. But we've missed the with God life because we try to go after it in the same way the world goes after it, which is namely through striving. And here's what I mean by striving. The definition will be on the screen just so we can enter into the reality of this word. Striving means to exert oneself vigorously, to try hard, or to make something happen. And every person in this room knows what that feels like. But what if striving isn't the best way to accomplish God's plan for our lives? You're like, Ben, I don't even know what I would do because that's 100% my life. What if striving isn't the best way to accomplish God's plan for our lives? For part 3 of this Bring It Out series, here's the title of my talk today: Striving Isn't Enough. Striving isn't enough. Our text for today, and I'll get there in just a moment, is John 15, 1-8. If you've got the Epic Church app, you've got a Bible on you, you've got the YouVersion app, or you just want to take the lazy route and watch us put it on the screen for you. But let me get you into the context before we walk into this eye-opening teaching from Jesus. Jesus is preparing his disciples for his death. Let's take it a step further. Jesus is preparing for his disciples to have a life after his death. And as he's preparing them, he says this in 14:12. That'll get us into where we're going to move into 15. He says this: "Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these because I am going to the Father." To which the disciples then, and those of us who would believe in him now, must say, really, Jesus? You're going away and we're going to do more than you did. I mean, Jesus, this sounds from Ben like a message on the with God life, but it seems like you are setting those disciples and us up for the without God life. Have you ever been a part of a team and have your team leader vacate? Anybody? Like for whatever reason, like hands up high. I just want to see so I can, yeah. And so here's the picture Jesus is giving to his disciples. I know I'm your leader. I'm walking out on this life, which means I'm walking out on this group, but you not only have to still accomplish the same results, you have to do even more than I did. If that's you and your teammates at work or whatever you might have a team on, all of a sudden you realize we've got to produce greater results without our team leader. What are we going to fall into? We are going to fall into striving. We're going to work longer hours. We're going to tell our spouse it's just a season, and maybe it is. We're going to tell our kids it's just a season. We're going to ratchet up the intensity. We're going to have no patience with each other because we know the only way we will do more than we did when he or she was leading us is if we get after it and make something happen ourselves. But what's crazy is that in John 15, 1-8, Jesus is going to say the secret is found actually in doing the opposite of striving. John 15, 1-8, I want you to stand with me. And by the way, what you hear today from Jesus, I don't know that your boss will buy it if you don't do any work this week. But he's unlocking something for us that I hope we take to heart. And if I can just be honest, and I don't just say this every day, and I don't sense this every day, I'm always excited to be with our church on a Sunday, but I believe that God already has done something special, and he's going to do something special by the time we walk out of these doors. And those of you watching at home, if you are like, wow, that looked amazing, you need to get down here. There's a 10:30 and a 12 o'clock last week. I don't understand all the reason, but we had 123 people in the city of San Francisco watching online. I thought we created the online campus for those of you around the globe or those of you who are sick, but nonetheless, we're thrilled to serve you in this way, and it saves us on your parking reimbursement. Look at the room. This is really fun. 9 o'clock. I don't know what you have planned today, but I assume a lot. And somebody told you, unless you do church, you're not getting it. Here's the words of Jesus. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, and you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples from God, for God, with God. Have a seat, and let's see what we might learn today. The vine dresser or the gardener has a vision for the kind of fruit that he or she wants to produce. And they understand, because they have a vision for the kind of fruit they want to produce, they have to be able to have a process that is going to, in the end, give them the result that they long for. Jesus is telling us this in this analogy, in this teaching. He's saying God is the vine dresser or the gardener, which means this. This is news that should delight you wherever you are in your faith journey. God has a vision for what he wants to bring out in and through your life. You might not have a vision. Your parents might not have been the kind of people who had a vision for your life. Your boss might not have a vision beyond what you can produce for the company. You might have even been a part of a church, hopefully only in the past, that didn't really have a vision for who you could become. But you need to know this. God has a vision, a preferred picture of the future that he wants to bring out in you and through your life. Is that good news to anybody besides me? I don't always have the vision. I'm not always keenly aware that there's still something he has ahead for me. But if there is breath in your lungs, if your heart is still beating, he has a vision for what he wants to bring out in you and through you for the sake of the rest of us and the sake of the world. He has a vision. But like that good vine dresser or gardener, he also knows there's a process that must be adhered to for that fruit to become the actual vision he has in mind, which is this. God created the process, and we can't skirt around it, so listen to that. God God created the process so that you and I can only bring out the fruit he created us to produce if we do it with him. And a little bit of that striving in me dies. And a little bit of that self-gratification in me dies because I like to do it by myself. He says, apart from me, you will not bear fruit, but if you remain in me, you will bear much fruit. Now, I've got to be honest with you. The verb in the Greek is the verb meno. And I don't love the NIV's translation of remain. That's the translation we teach from here at Epic. It gets to the heart. It's part of the definition, but I prefer a different word, and I'll share that with you in just a moment. But here's what this word remain, or the Greek word meno, means. You'll see it on the screen. It means to abide, to stay, or to make your home in. I love the word abide personally more than I love the word remain. I think there's a little more active piece to abiding, even though we're not doing all of the action ourselves. Our point of action or activity is to abide, is to dwell in, is to meno in Jesus, is to stay in Jesus. Now, you need to understand something. Jesus is not advocating for laziness. Jesus is not advocating for laziness, but he is telling us this: your striving alone will not get the job done. If you watch the disciples' movement after the death of Jesus, there's no laziness. There's no laziness. But they also aren't getting the job done that Jesus commissioned them to take care of, the mission to the world, to every nation under heaven. They're also not doing it just by their own striving. He's not calling you or I into laziness. He's not calling us as a church into laziness, but he is calling us away from striving. Now, I realize where I am. I know that in our city, San Francisco, there is so much accomplishment, achievement, independence, and striving. I know where I am. So we should ask Jesus the question, when you say apart from you we can do nothing, Jesus, you must not really mean that. Have you seen San Francisco? Jesus, they are writing about us. They are saying that there hasn't been a period of time in most cities in their entire history that we're enjoying right now. Do you know, Jesus, what flows from here? Do you know what we're creating that's literally being used all around the world? And he's like, yeah, I didn't literally mean nothing. I just meant none of the stuff I created you to produce. Now, he's not saying that to us as a lot, as a group, as a herd. But if your posture is, look what I've done, and I didn't need you for any of it, he's like, yeah, in my mind, that's nothing. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And it's one thing to pay lip service to that. A lot of you have heard that verse in your life, but do we believe it? Does Ben Pilgreen, as the pastor of Epic Church, as the husband of Tashana, as the father of 4 kids, as your friend who's encouraging you to go after what God has for you, do I really believe that you will do nothing of consequence apart from Jesus? Jesus believed it. And the disciples are the epitome of this. If you watch their life before the Spirit comes, right? Your life cannot produce what God intends for it to produce apart from God. I think some people need to be taking pictures, or you already have the notes on the app, so that's why I'm not watching you right. I get it. Your life, however grand it is or is not, your life cannot produce what God intends for it to produce apart from God. Friends, we cannot bear fruit on our own, but thank God we are not on our own. You can't bear fruit on your own, but you don't have to be on your own. Today is not about this. It is not about you and I having a weight of regret about all the times we missed out on the with God life. But here's what my aim is today. My aim today is this. I want to begin to create a great anticipation for you and I to begin imagining what could my life look like and what would the fruit look like that I'm going to produce if I did it with God. I know you're awesome on your own, but oh my gosh, can you imagine? What would your work look like? What could your parenting look like? What could your leadership role in this church look like? What could it look like if Jesus was doing the work with you? John Ortberg, in his great book, Soul Keeping, writes this: bearing fruit means that we will do wonderful things in our lives for God and his kingdom, but we don't really have to try all that hard. Instead, we are to make sure, here's our job, we are to make sure we are with God. That's what it means to abide in the vine. Live intimately with Jesus from one moment to the next. We always talk here at Epic about our part and God's part. Here's what you need to know on this topic today. Jesus is committed to playing his part, but he isn't going to play your part. So often in our lives, we act like Jesus is the variable. I just don't know if he's going to show up. I don't know if he's committed to doing his thing. Jesus has always been doing his thing. He's doing his thing now, and he will do it long from now. But understand this, if he's doing his thing and we disconnect from his life, it's not going to matter to us because it's not going to flow into us. If we want to be the broken off branch, go do your own thing. Maybe you'll get applause in this world, but let me tell you where you won't get it from. Do you really want to do it alone? Jesus told his original disciples, guys, here's the mission. I want you to take what you've heard from me, what you've seen in me, and I want you to carry it out to the nations. Now, if you were a recruiter determining Jesus' team, you would never give those 12 a call back. Agreed? You're just like, yeah, not a fit. You act like you don't know him. You're probably not going to be the guy, Peter, that's going to take this to the world. Right? John and James, you're in it for selfish ambition. I don't know that you're cut out to really do it. I mean, one writer said, John and James, that your mom went and asked Jesus if you could. Really? The three of you. But Jesus knew that it would be possible if, and only if, he found a way to be with those guys and eventually with those ladies that joined them and carrying the movement forward. And so Jesus told them, hey, don't go do anything on your own. Don't miss this. Don't go do anything on your own. Wait till I clothe you with power from on high. But when I clothe you with power from on high, then you are to go into all the world, because you won't be alone. You will be in the epitome of what a with God life looks like. So in Acts chapter 2, check it out if you haven't read it or haven't read it in a while, the Holy Spirit comes, and Peter, who was a coward, Peter, who was so overreactive, Peter, who had nothing going for him, he was back fishing. Well, now the power comes, and he gives the first Christian message ever, and the movement begins, so much so, friends, that 2,000 years later, the movement is still going strong today. Would you agree? It's still going strong in the underground church in China. It's still going strong as thousands of people gather under trees and tents in the bush of Africa. It's still going strong, catch this, by a group of people who are in a basement beneath Market Street in San Francisco, even at this day and age. It's still moving. Why? Because we have amazing pastors? Part of me wishes that was true. No, because when God shows up, he always moves forward the trajectory of history and eternity, and it's up to us, just like it was those original disciples. Will we believe that God in us is enough to do whatever he calls us to do? Think about this. I was thinking about this morning as I was praying. The scriptures say, Jesus says, with God, all things are possible. This is true not just in history. It's not just true for everyone else. It's true for you. With God, all things are possible. You cannot bear fruit on your own, but you are not on your own. I love doing meaningful work. Anyone else? I hate work that I can't connect the dots on it being meaningful. Let me tell you what I love more, though, even more than doing meaningful work. I especially love doing meaningful work with people who mean a lot to me. I love raising our 4 kids most of the time. But I especially love that Shauna and I get to do it together. Now, when she disagrees with me, I'm like, yeah, well, okay, right? But I love doing that meaningful work. Here at Epic, I love doing meaningful work, but you know how much less my joy would be if I didn't get to do meaningful work with this amazing team alongside of me? I promise you, part of my joy, I love what I do, I love preparing, I love the work that even when I'm doing it alone, but what brings me great joy is doing this meaningful work with people who mean so much to me. When I think about the 12 to 15 on staff, when I think about 120 leaders, I love doing the work with you all. If you aren't here, my joy would be less, the fun would be less, and you know the production would be a whole lot less than it is with all of you. It just would be. Now think about this. God has given all of us meaningful work to do, but how incredible that we get to do it with a God who I hope means so much to us. You're not going to Google alone tomorrow. You're not stepping into that 3rd grade classroom alone tomorrow. You're not going to that grad school class tomorrow, and you do need to go. You paid for that. You are not stepping into it alone. I do not come to this stage alone. If I do, we should all stay home. But if God shows up in me and through my life, then maybe a rebellious teenager who drops his public speaking class can be used by God, even in this crazy place called San Francisco. With God, all things are possible, but we keep acting like it's on me, and so we strive, and then we still fall short, and we're like, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you other than the fact that you didn't tap into the source who made himself available to you. That's on you. But if you would tap into it. Some of you think you're too smart to tap into it. Keep having it your way. Keep having it your way. You're awesome. But you're missing out on the fruit that God created you to produce in this life. Here's a question that I want you to ask if you're not asking it. What's the difference between striving and abiding? Let me give you a few thoughts. Striving feels like endless hustle. When we are abiding, there's a sane rhythm of work and rest. Striving tends to bring anxiety. We've all been there. Abiding tends to create peace, regardless of our circumstance. Striving means that we miss out on what actually matters most, but when we're abiding, we're fully present to God and to those closest to us. Striving feels like earning, while abiding feels like receiving. When you and I are striving, there's great despair when we experience failure, and there's great arrogance when we experience success. But when we're abiding, we are both humble, yet confident. I told you when I began this talk that my posture typically is, God, what do you have for me to do? All right, hang here. I'm going to go give it all I've got. You're going to be impressed. God, I'm more productive. God, I've been reading Michael Hyatt. God, I read Getting Things Done. God, I read The One Thing. God, I read Essentialism. I love all those books. Watch, productive. Here you go. Let me tell you where I'm at today, and I want to invite you into this space. All right, God, what do you have for us in this season? What do you have for me in this season? Okay, God, let's go. It's changing everything for me. When I'm writing during the week by myself, God, be in this with me. When my butt gets up from that seat and comes to the stage, God, come with me. When I'm sitting with you and you're going through a heartbreak, or I'm parenting a tough moment with my kids, God, you can be in this. God, you can be in the pain, and you can be in the joy. God, you can be in this crazy vision that we're trying to run after with this home initiative. God, if you're not in it, I cannot do that alone. But God, if you're calling me in and you go before me and you'll go with me, okay. John 15:8, I think it gets the from God, the for God, and the with God. It says this, Jesus said, "This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples." For God. This is for my Father's glory. This is for him. It is not for you. It's not so the world thinks you're awesome. Bearing much fruit, that you bear much fruit. That's your assignment from God, to bear much fruit, whatever way he's wired you and called you. And then showing yourselves to be my disciples. Now, all of us understand that if you're a disciple of Jesus, it means you do what Jesus did. But before you can do what Jesus does, you have to be with Jesus. One of the gospel writers said that when Jesus called those original disciples, he called them to come and be with him, period. You will not do what Jesus did in the power of Jesus if you're not with Jesus. Something that I've been doing that's been so helpful, and I don't do it all the time, but I want to invite you into it. A practice I've been doing is inviting God into every space of my day. Again, I don't get it 100%, but even when I wake up, God, I want to invite you into this day. When I sit down at the breakfast table with my kids, God, I want to invite you into this day. When I show up at a staff meeting, God, I don't want to just do the best strategy we can come up with by ourselves because we used to do it last year. I want to have the best that you can do. I'm inviting you into this space. When I sit down with people who literally are brokenhearted, relationships or whatever, like, God, I invite you into this space. When I hear stories of the pain that some of you go through, I'm wanting to invite God into that space, and I wanted to encourage you to begin praying this. In the midst of joy in a tough parenting moment, when I have to cast a vision for something that I can't say, here it is, God, I want to invite you into this space. And so it's a simple formula, but it just looks like this. You'll see it on the screen. Practice it starting today. Jesus, I invite you into fill in the blank. I invite you into this time with my grandkids. I invite you into this pitch meeting. I invite you into getting a new home. I'm looking at specific people and just calling out what I see in this room. God, I'm inviting you into this breakup conversation. You're not going to blame it on God. You're going to take ownership, but you're inviting God into it. God, when I go to work tomorrow, you know what's ahead of me. You know I don't want to be a part of that meeting with that person, but if I invite you into it, maybe it'll go better than if I just do it by myself. But let me tell you what you need to be very cautious of. If you find yourself moving into a moment or moving into a space and you realize, whoa, I cannot invite Jesus into this space, then you need to get out of that space. You need to go back and listen to last week's talk on the path. If you find yourself going, Jesus, I invite you into, you need to bounce from that place. If there's a space in your life where you can't invite him into, and then you're going to blame the fact that he didn't bless you later, I would be very careful. I would be very careful. You've been invited to a with God life. But he's not going to force it on you, most likely. He did Paul, but he didn't for most. He invites mostly. And some of you have been receiving that invitation over and over again, but it has become clear today. There's no doubt people watching right now online and people who are in this room that you've lived a pretty good life, but you've completely missed out on Jesus. Today's not about regret, but it is about imagining what could your life with him look like, and what would it look like for you to produce the fruit he created you to produce, the vision God has for your life. Today would be a great day to go, okay, I've got to do this with you. I cannot take a chance on doing this on my own. I know where that's gotten me, and I know what it's ahead for me. And then others of us, we've gotten really good at the for God, we've gotten really good at the from God, but what about that with God life? He's the vine, you are the branches. Abide in him and you will bear much fruit. Apart from him, you can bear no fruit. I know you want a fruitful life. We've established that just over the last 2 weeks. But are you going to walk the path to a fruitful life? Some of you have all kinds of reasons why you aren't wanting to engage him in this. Are those reasons sufficient? If you're on a path of missing out on your life on earth, in your life on earth and the life to come for all eternity, you don't have to stay on that path. You do have to let go of control, but Jesus can produce in you and through you what you could never produce on your own. What would it look like to go, okay, my life is in you? And then today, I know that there's a number of you in this room, you've made a decision to follow Jesus with your life. And yet, part of what it means to abide in Jesus is we must obey what he tells us to do. And for maybe dozens of you in this room, you know that he's been calling you to go public with your faith through baptism, and you've been fighting it, and you think you have really good reasons. Even today, you might think you have a good reason, and I want to blow those reasons up. You're not prepared. You don't have clothes. We've got you. You can even keep them. Don't tell Minnie. She runs our budget. I just told her, you can keep those clothes. A lot of you are like, I just don't know. Ben, I don't have the courage. Let me say something really strong, but I want you to receive it from a gentle tone. If you can't follow Jesus in this community with people who love you and want more of Jesus for you, do you really think you're going to follow him out there? What are the chances? And as you've heard us talk about, you're like, Ben, I don't know if I can do it. Then just like I gave you on the screen a moment ago, when we stand and sing, I want you to come meet us right here. There are already people getting baptized every service today. We want you to be a part of that. Here's what I want you to pray as we stand up to sing and respond and for you to walk forward. Jesus, will you come with me? I don't just want the life from you. I don't want to just do my baptism for you. I want to do it with you. It'd be so incredible to celebrate with you today. Remember, if you're in a community of people who love you and you can't take that, I know it's courageous, but if you can't take that step now, how in the world will we be able to take it out there tomorrow? I want to pray for you, and I want to ask you to let God do what he wants to do in this moment. You're not alone. You've been given a with God direction for your life, and I pray you'll take it. And God, I thank you for what you've already done in hearts in this room. God, I thank you for what you've done in my own heart this week. So, God, you're with us. God, there's no way to explain what you've done in the history of Epic Church or what you've done over the decades in my own life without saying, God came and he did something with me and he came and did something for me. God, I pray that you would seal truth in our hearts today. God, I pray, knowing that you have a vision for what you want to have produced in our lives, God, I pray that we would adhere to the process, which is this, not striving, but abiding. Jesus, you've said that you would be with us, and so we invite you into this space right now and into our day tomorrow to come and be with us. You are here. We don't want to do it alone. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I want to ask everyone to stand. And for every man, woman, boy, girl who knows, like, this is your step today, we're so ready for you, and I'm going to ask you to come forward at this time. Experience the baptism step that Jesus is calling you into. And I pray that these words we're about to sing will minister to you as you prepare to take this step.